Wilson Tucker was elected to the WA Upper House back in 2021 with just 98 primary votes. Got in through the group voting ticket system, which has now been abolished. He got in through his Daylight Saving Party. He is not contesting the March state election, and it's been an interesting 4 years for him in Parliament. He joins us now. Wilson Tucker, thank you very much.
Leo, of course, good to be here.
So, why have you made this decision? Obviously, there's been changes to the upper house rules in terms of both the removal of GVT and the removal of regions. You, of course, were a mining and pastoral region. Was it just that, or was it just you saw the kind of crop, you saw the other parties that were running and just like, no point?
Look, so Labor certainly made it difficult for independents, especially and minor parties in the last term of Parliament. I think we've had 4 electoral reform changes, and really trying to cement their majority. They've abolished the regions. Now we have sort of a Victorian model, or the state model, being applied in 2025 onwards. And also they've changed some of the disclosure requirements, and essentially parties had to re-register. So the Daylight Saving Party didn't get across the line, and I was at the time happy to sit there and be an independent. I think it did free me up a little bit in the regions when having conversations, rather than just talking about or being painted with the daylight saving brush. Of course, there's a lot of other issues affecting Western Australia and regional Western Australia. So look, I was happy to run as an independent. I was certainly exploring the option of joining a couple of different parties, but I wanted to join a party that their values were aligned with my values, first and foremost. And given the number of the parties that were available at the time, I didn't think that any parties really resonated, and I didn't want to just to join a party to try and get in again. I wanted to actually do it on a platform that resonated with myself. So that decision made it fairly straightforward, I think, at the end of the day, around my decision not to contest this state election.
Your party, the Daylight Saving Party, was deregistered actually a couple of years back. I think I spoke to you about it at the time. Was there any hope at all that you were able to get it back up, or once it was deregistered, were you kind of just accepting that it might not be able to get up? As you mentioned, there's been a few changes to electoral reform in WA anyway.
Yeah, look, I mean, it certainly wasn't impossible to register the party, and I don't think the fact that we didn't register the party reflects on the issue itself. We have conducted some polling in the last year, which shows that there is a majority support for daylight saving in Western Australia. It is quite difficult to engage people and get them to join a party first and foremost. At the time, I was busy, being an elected member, and that was sort of my primary focus. I was also talking to a number of other parties, and so I did see a pathway with joining them to potentially get re-elected. And so I made the decision to concentrate my energy in a different direction. Also, as you mentioned, Leo, the group voting tickets have been abolished in Western Australia, so there's no more of these 98 fluke elections, you could say. So you need around 40,000 votes, or 2.6% of the vote, to get in. So I just didn't feel, given the voting sentiment, which is typically away from minor parties and towards the majors, that the Daylight Saving Party probably wouldn't be successful. So I was happy to advocate for the issue, let the party slip, and then join a different party with a larger platform.
If I read the West Australians article right, because you mentioned that you were in talks with a few minor parties, I think the DLP was one of them. Am I correct in thinking that changed when they had to change their name to the Stop Pedophiles Protect Kiddies thing?
That's correct. Yeah, look, I was talking to the DLP for probably a couple of years, actually, and the WA was an opportunity to basically start a new branch of the DLP, and basically sort of a clean slate, you could say, where I could create policies that reflected what the community wanted here in Western Australia, rather than some of the other issues that they've been known for in the past. But when the Labor Party basically banned them from registering because they had Labor in their name, even after the Electoral Commissioner viewed that that wasn't an issue, then they've essentially changed the name against my wishes or advice. And like I said, the values and the name of the party don't reflect my values, and so it was a parting of the way then.
So you mentioned just before with polling. I'm interested, do you think, or are you hopeful that just the fact that you were elected with the party, Daylight Saving Party, do you think that has gotten attention to the issue of daylight savings in WA, even just a bit more than it might have already had with the kind of annual discussions already?
Yeah, look, absolutely. And that's, I mean, given the numbers in the chamber, it's, virtually impossible to pass a bill to instigate daylight saving or, push for a referendum, given that Labor have control of both houses. So that public discussion and that attention is really something that have been able to bring to the chamber. We did get quite early on. I created a bill for daylight saving. I brought it on for a second reading debate in the chamber. So it was good to get some attention and some focus. We certainly got a lot of media attention on the issue as well, which is fantastic. And so it starts that discussion again. Since then, it has been fairly dormant since the trial period. And as you mentioned, it is quite cyclical when the East Coast switches on, switches off. Sometimes we get a little bit of a news cycle attention here in Western Australia, but we haven't had a very in-depth debate for quite a while. So that is something that I have been able to do under the daylight saving brand.
So you mentioned it just at the start of that answer there. Your 4 years in Parliament, Labor's had a super majority. They haven't need any other votes in either house. And I was speaking to Brian Walker about it the other day, the legalised cannabis leader. What's your experience been like? I think he used the term autocratic dictatorship with the way Labor's been running things. Would you think of it as similar?
Oh, look, I would say it's yeah. Look, I would look. It is. I would say it's obviously a privilege to be in this position, but it can be, I would say, incredibly frustrating at times. And I haven't been privy to a position where the crossbench has that balance of power, but I think that would be an ideal thing. And the numbers and where they stacked up is less than ideal in WA, and it's basically just been Labor's way or the highway. They have come to the table a few times on various issues. I was able to get them to change some of the wording and strengthen some of the data privacy laws. But that was a sort of a small win in the chamber. Otherwise, it's been Labor's. They've been able to push through their agenda and haven't given much regard to the minor parties, to the crossbench, or even the opposition for the most part. So I mean, the chamber itself can be quite frustrating, but there are other ways of raising issues which outside the chamber, which I've found much more rewarding, I would say, through committee work, through community engagement and consultation as well. So sort of a multifaceted job, but the Parliament side of things is fairly autocratic, I would agree.
Obviously, you've been in the you are in the somewhat unique position of not having a party contesting this election and not contesting the election yourself. I think it's largely unanimously agreed that Labor is going to retain government at this election. But do you have any hope for how the upper house is going to turn out? There is quite a few minor parties that are still contesting. Some of them, obviously, you would have seen and worked with on the crossbench, like the Greens, like legalised cannabis. Do you have a hope about how the upper house and Parliament more generally turns out?
Yeah, look, I mean, more diversity in the chamber is a good thing. I think given the changes, we aren't going to see the Wilson Tucker on 98 votes anymore with the abolishment of group voting tickets. But there is, it's about 2.6%, I believe, to get across the line. So you will see hopefully quite a diverse mix of crossbenchers of minor parties in the upper house as well. So I think that is a good thing. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Labor don't have the majority again, and there is a lot more debate and sort of consensus building that is required in the upper house, and it's basically functioning like it should. So that is my hope. I think you're right in saying that based on current polling and the way it looks, it's certainly Labor's to lose. But I think there's going to be a course correction around voter sentiment and where the number of seats that they do control.
Now, as again, it's being abolished, but until I think in a few days, really, you are still the mining and pastoral member. You've represented that region. For those who are unfamiliar, this takes up almost 90% of WA's land. It is a ginormous electoral region by world standards. What has that experience been like? Because I just find it extraordinary when you see that electoral region map and you see that amount of size, and you can talk about population, but 5 members for all of that is just insane. How's it been for you pretty much on your own?
Yeah, look, I would say quite daunting at times. It is one of the largest non-country electorates. I believe it's 2 million plus square kilometres, 130,000 people. So very big and quite sparsely populated as well. A majority of the population in Western Australia is focused in Perth. I was getting a little bit of criticism early on about having my electoral office in the city, but the reality is that it's such a big area. Having a presence on the ground, I mean, the distance. If you have your office in Kununurra, then it might as well be on the moon when you talk about trying to have a presence down in Kalbarri. So it's just a very big area. It does require a lot of time to travel. Certainly, I did take an opportunity to travel basically all around WA for several months and meeting a lot of people in the community, which was a fantastic and rewarding experience. And certainly used a lot of air miles as well to travel around the place. So look, it's certainly daunting, but it has been a privilege to serve. It is, I believe, one of the most unique and beautiful places in the world, and it's just a real privilege when you get to represent a place that is the East Kimberley, West Kimberley, Pilbara, spectacular place, and then the landscape changes a very lot. So it's been a daunting task, but certainly a rewarding and a good one.
Can I ask, it might seem like a stupid question because it's been 4 years now, but can you still believe that it happened, that you got in with 98 votes? And again, for those who haven't been familiar with your story, like you were, as I understand, you were overseas at the time, right? It was just the biggest fluke of it all. Is it still after this full term setting in that you've been an elected MP in the most unlikely of circumstances and with your own party as well?
Yeah, look, certainly unexpected. To put it mildly. I think it's when you least expect these things in life, that's when they typically happen. I was campaigning quite pretty hard in 2017 and had a good shot. Didn't get it. Left the country. Was working overseas. I was in Mexico actually at the time, based in Seattle when the results were coming in, and the ABC prediction calculator had Wilson Tucker up there. So I had a bit of time to think about it and then pack my bags and come back. But it did go very quickly, and I really haven't had too much of a time to reflect back on it yet. We have until May when Parliament goes back, and then there's a valedictory speech. And I think after that period, it will set in. But it has gone very, very quickly. And look, it's been a good ride, a rewarding experience. I think the longer that I stay in this role, the more I realize that it's more about trying to give back to the community than help yourself. It is public sector. You are there to serve. So it's been an honor and a privilege to be in this position. And I will certainly have to do some reflecting on the last 4 years, which went very, very quickly.
Just finally, got to ask, is there any chance you'd ever get back into politics, state, federal, local, or are you just happy to have enjoyed the last 4 years and be done with it?
No, look, I'm certainly open to it. I think with given the changes and just the party registration process, it didn't feel like the right time, and I wanted to rerun on my own terms. But look, certainly I'm definitely open to it. It was a lot of fun. And, never say never. I do have we did get quite close to registration with the Daylight Saving Party. And so now, as as you're aware, these electoral cycles do move very quickly. 4 years does go quickly, so I've got some time in which to potentially register the party again. And I wouldn't rule out state or federal. I've certainly made a lot of connections and contacts in this space. I think I've matured as a sort of a politician, you could say, and my views have probably solidified a little bit more. So look, I wouldn't rule it out.
All right. Well, really appreciate your time chatting to us over the past 4 years. Wilson Tucker, thank you very much.
Leo, thank you.